The Tsou's Legendary Tales and Customs. This is a chapter from the book My Dear Ak'i, Please Don't Be Upset, authored by Faisu Mukunana, English translation published in 2021. This book is available from itascabooks.com. In the beginning, Amo Hamo, the supreme god, was standing on the top of Mount Patunkuonu, currently called Mount Jade, gently shaking a maple tree. Tree seeds were flaking down and became humans who propagated. Amo Hamo told these people to form hosas, or communities, so that the tribal people could live together. What follows is the fairy tale told by the Tsou people about the origin of their ancestors. Although the tale is mythical, there is no doubt that many Tsou people today firmly believe that Mount Jade is their ancestral home. Later, no one is sure how many years later, according to the myth, the earth was totally inundated. People and animals who were used to roaming the forests watched as the flood waters continued to rise, immersing first the smaller mountains, then the larger ones, and finally all of them, except Mount Jade. So the animals and humans rushed there to escape the calamity. It was told that the people who escaped to Mount Jade from the floods included the Tsou and other tribes. In addition, there was a wide variety of beasts and worms. The human survivors who cherished life endeavored to live together peacefully. This is the second mythological story that is part of the Tsou's history relating to Mount Jade. In the Tsou language, despite its rather limited vocabulary, there are specific proper nouns associated with Mount Jade, as well as writings depicting historical events and citing nearby place names. For example, Mount Jade is adjacent to a mountain called Tataka. A Tsou song titled Mountain Climbing contains these lines. In the days of clear skies, look to the east where the sun rises. One can see Hualien. Look to the west where the sun sets. One can see the big ocean. This indicates that the Tsou people once were active in the Mount Jade area. The history of Mount Jade and the Tsou people is clearly interrelated, and in the Tsou's view, Mount Jade is sacred. Legend has it that as the floods receded, the lucky Tsou survivors descended Mount Jade in groups on separate routes designated by family name. Some followed the Seha no Moku River all the way downstream to the Tsou River and surrounding areas that today are known as Jiji and Donan. Some groups followed the Nanzhuxian River, even as far as the Laolong River. Some groups were tossed about along the Tsengwen River to arrive at Tainan or continue all the way to Anping. And some groups followed the Qingsui River to the Chiayi Plain. Groups with different family names gradually settled down along various rivers, creeks, and streams where it was arable to burn and cultivate the land or hunt. Over a long period of time, they formed settlements and established communities. From as far north as the Tsou River to as far south as the mouth of the Tsengwen River and the Anping area, there are Tsou footprints and ancient stories. According to legends, Amo Hamo was a giant. He led the Tsou people on their descent from Mount Jade in a search for a new world where they could settle and propagate. He stamped down towering mountains into flat lands to make the area more livable. He decided where Tsou of high social status would live, as well as those whose family names were less worthy or distinguished. When Amo Hamo descended from Mount Jade, His Majesty's first footstep was in the area of what today is known as the Tafuya community, which is located in the Tapangu community in the Alisan region of Chiayi County. His second footstep was in another part of the Tapangu community. According to legend, when he was descending from Mount Jade, He was looking in a westerly direction, while his 2 feet were standing at these 2 spots, just a few kilometers apart. His 3rd footstep landed on Seafunu of the Tsonghair village in Chiayi, which is only about 10 kilometers away from Tapangu. The 4th footstep was much farther. He stepped on Gongtian village in Fanglu Township, while the next footstep crushed the foothill of Hokubu. Step by step, he stamped out areas that were suitable for the Tsou families. He instructed the people to establish communities and called on millet goddess Nivnu to teach the Tsou life skills and cultivating techniques so that they could live a good life, wherever it was they were told to live. Over time, some of these small settlements gradually became hosas, head communities, which were, and still are, centers of tradition, culture, education, and the military. They are also in control of various branch communities. Every hosa has a pyongsi, or chief, also called tomu, who serves as the leader of the community. The chief's responsibilities include leading battles, guarding hunting grounds, settling disputes with other tribes or hosas, hosting tribal ceremonies, handling affairs of crime and punishment, and making decisions regarding important ceremonies and major events. For all the chief's apparent power, he can't become a dictator because all major decisions have to first be approved by the elders in their council meetings. The head of a hosa is required to have good leadership qualities and the ability to make the scattered smaller communities cohesive parts of the entire community, willing to work together wholeheartedly with and be receptive and loyal to the hosa. The headman must notify the scattered families of both high and low social status whenever the hosa is making major decisions, and ask for the family's participation in any decision-making process. However, due to a population continually on the move, some Tsou people disappeared while others remained. A case in point, when the Japanese ruled, several thousand Tsou were moved to reside in Sanming village and Taoyuan village in Kaohsiung. Both districts belong to the Bulun tribe. In addition, many Bulun people were relocated to the area of Seihanomoku River in Nanto, which was originally Tsou territory. The Tsou and Bulun people gradually adopted their new environments and became assimilated into existing populations in both language and lifestyle. Apart from shifting demographics, battles with other tribes and epidemics caused the Tsou's population to decline, and the area in which they lived to shrink. As of 2003, there were only 2 hosas existent, Tufuya and Tapangu, along with 6 smaller communities. The total population, including Tsou scattered about in Nanto and Kaohsiung, is some 5,000 to 6,000. Every year at the annual Harvest Festival and Warrior Festival, those who live in Nanto and Kaohsiung and who still identify themselves as Tsou return to find their roots and participate in the festivals. Ceremonies and rituals. The Tsou's ceremonial rituals and festivals were closely intertwined with the people's daily lives. For example, in order to have hope for a good harvest, millet and rice ceremonies were conducted. To help ensure a successful hunt, there was a hunting ceremony. To aspire to win a battle over foreigners or to commemorate a past victory, there was, and still is, the Warrior Festival. To realize peace in one's residence, there was a peace-seeking ceremony. To garner safety while using a road, there was a road blessing ceremony. And to worship the great Mother Nature, there is still a ritual to honor the earth. While various ceremonial rituals are still practiced today, they differ in many ways from the old traditional ones. In order to facilitate a long overdue repair of a kuba, there is a repair ceremony. A kuba is an educational center where men, and only men, could go to engage in activities related to learning about and carrying on the Tsou culture and heritage. Of course, this shows the Tsou to be a patriarchal society. In recent times, due to more outsiders visiting the Tsou communities who are not familiar with Tsou customs, a sign, "Women are not allowed," is posted on a wooden pole in front of the building. While each and every ceremony is extremely important, in the past, the one that was paid the most attention, related as it was to the tribe's livelihood, was the ritual for the millet barn. Historically, the primary food staples of the Tsou were millet, yam, and dried land rice, all blessings of the goddess Nivnu. The paddy rice field was introduced by the Han people after the Tsou's contacts with them. Because of this, rituals for the millet barn were practiced much earlier and were more closely observed than the rituals for the rice barn. One is greatly touched, knowing how the rituals, from those for seed selection to seed spreading, are treated with such thoughtfulness and care, as evidenced by the profound respect for and humility shown to the goddess Nivnu. After about 6 months of a year's hard work, and as an expression of their gratefulness for the millet harvest, all of the Tsou dance and celebrate at the harvest festival until dawn. Another relatively major ceremony is the Myasvi, or warrior festival. Its program is similarly rich and solemn. Its main purpose is to worship Amo Hamo and the warriors. Due to a well-developed transportation network, today the Tsou commonly receive a contemporary education. In addition, highly developed information technologies have enabled them to shift from their former and traditional self-sufficient lifestyles to very different ways of living and farming. These days, they seldom grow millet as a food staple. Rather, it is used primarily for ceremonial and brewing purposes. And they now grow crops of higher economic value, such as tea, vegetables suitable for growth in high-latitude climates, and flowers, to sell in order to then purchase other life necessities. Because the Tsou society has evolved into a diversified one, a lot of young people work in a variety of professions outside their tribal land areas. Their schedule regarding work and leisure is governed no longer by the tribal dictates of planting and harvesting ceremonies, once held seasonally throughout the year. As a result, the practice of the harvest festival isn't emphasized as it was in the past, while today the ceremony of the warrior festival possesses greater importance. Before a warrior festival is performed, the Hosa leader, or chief, of the large community calls a planning meeting to be held at the Kuba by notifying the kinship units of different family names to send their representatives. The first item on the agenda is to review and discuss anything that has happened, major or minor, good or bad, to the entire tribe during the year. After assessing the situation, they determine how the warrior festival should proceed, how the planned events should be sequenced, and how tasks should be divided among the participants. Occasionally, when issues don't have definitive answers, assistance is sought from a seer. Also, before a warrior festival is held, some elders would find time on an evening out of their busy work schedules to meet at a kuba to help young men rehearse the songs to be sung at the warrior festival. According to the old customs, the songs that were sung at ceremonies were forbidden to be sung at other occasions. Doing so would show great disrespect to the gods. However, these days, in order for people living outside Tsou communities to be exposed to Tsou culture, groups of Tsou people often perform their old ceremonies outside their communities and even overseas. In the old days, before ceremonies could be performed, men from different family names in a Hosa were required to hunt in order to store meat for the occasion. This required that roads from a Hosa to the hunting ground be cleared and prayers said to ensure a successful hunt. Also, tribal members of the branch communities were responsible for cleaning up the roads leading from branch communities to the head community which also was carried out during the ceremony for roads. The women were busy too, husking millet to make millet wine for entertaining the guests and for the tribal members of head and branch communities after they attended the ceremonies. All Tsou ceremonies are performed in the utmost sacred manner. Those present should be quiet. Even sneezing is not allowed. There are also strict requirements regarding attendance. Non-Tsou tribe members, people who have violated tribal rules, and relatives of natural disaster victims are not welcome. Toward the end of each subsection of a ceremony, there are often short but loud outbursts of howling by the participants, intended to express their God-fearing respect, and at the same time alerting participants of the imminent closing of the subsection. Before the closure of the entire ceremony, the chief leads the participants in singing somewhat light-hearted songs, dealing with subjects such as history, youth, warriors, and others. Before the formal warrior ceremony is conducted, a ceremony is held for the kuba, the men's meeting place, so that it's functional, clean, and looks presentable. First, the ceremonial master consecrates the site by sprinkling wine on it. Then he orders young people to climb to the rooftop to remove the sacred flower, the Dendrobium comatum, a type of orchid. Next, the young people remove the old thatch from the roof and install a new layer. Finally, the sacred flower is replaced where it had been previously, or a new one is planted at the same spot. Both sides of the building entrance are also adorned with the same plants. If major repairs to the kuba are deemed necessary, they should be completed way ahead of the scheduled ceremony. All participants are required to dress in traditional Tsou costume, which consists of a sword and a sacred flower to adorn their leather caps. The flowers are freshly picked by the participants early on the morning of the ceremony from deep in the mountains. They also dye red the dried bark of stripped hibiscus stems and tie them to their arms and hunting knife straps. The participants follow the chief in a procession into the kuba to pick pieces of burning charcoal from the fire pit, in which an ever-burning fire is maintained to symbolize that the Tsou tribe will live on forever. They carry the burning charcoal to use as tinder for another fire pit that is located at the central area of the ceremonial ground. This pit is laid beforehand with wood to burn as the sacred fire. Then the ceremonial participants face the sacred tree, a large-leafed banyan. Following this is a ceremony to welcome the gods' spirits. In the past, a wild boar was slaughtered, and each warrior would dip his sword into the animal's blood and spread it upon the sacred tree to honor the gods. Today, a pig is used in the ceremony. It is usually home-raised and not wild. The chief then orders several strong warriors to climb the sacred tree and, on the way up, clear the branches to symbolize clearing a path for the gods to descend from heaven to the earth. In the branch-clearing process, 3 branches are left untouched. 1 points to the kuba, 1 to the chief's residence, and the 3rd to the tribe's residential area. Small pieces of pork speared by wood sticks are placed on the trunk of the sacred tree as a gesture of invitation to the god spirits. The ceremony participants then form a semicircle, hand in hand, facing the sacred tree, while the chief leads them in God-inviting songs to welcome the arrival of Amo Hamo and the warriors. Next on the ceremonial agenda is the tribal solidarity ceremony. Once again, the participants enter the kuba. The elders who represent various family names decorate the rooftops with sacred flowers and return to the sacred tree to share more flowers with the participating young warriors. With flowers in hand, each warrior runs to their family's millet barn to declare that Amo Hamo has blessed the family. Obtaining a small bamboo cup of millet wine from their respective homes, the young warriors run back to the kuba and empty the cup into a large bamboo jar stored inside a sacred cabinet. This is done to symbolize solidarity among the kinship units, or descendants of a particular family name. The wine in the large bamboo jar, collected from all the household units, is then shared by the ceremonial participants from all of the different kinship family units. There are 2 other ceremonial rituals that are performed during the tribal solidarity ceremony to bless a family's line of succession from generation to generation. One of them is the ritual for a newborn male to enter the kuba for the first time. The infant is carried into the kuba either by his father or by his uncle, along with a cup of wine. The household elder touches the infant's head to signify that he has been accepted into the community and to bless him with a healthy and harmonious life while growing up. The second ritual is the initiation rite for boys 15 or 16 years of age. The elder sings war and hunting songs, and the participants sing along with him. The elder whips the boy's bottom while at the same time admonishing him. Boys who had behaved themselves receive symbolic lashes, while boys who didn't behave receive heavy lashes to teach them a lesson. The purpose of this rite is to warn the teenagers that since they are now grown up, they must obey the tribe's rules, work hard, and learn to behave responsibly toward their family, the tribal community, and themselves. The young men hope this will be the last time they'll be physically punished. While this ritual is in progress, the ceremonial master has each member stamp on the kuba's floor while striking it with a wooden stick. The elder then leads the group to the millet barn of the household that was established the earliest and has contributed the most to the community. After this, they visit the house of the community chief and sip from the wine container held by the chief. Finally, they go home and put on adult dress and return to the kuba. At the time when the initiation rite for male youths is being held, a parallel one for young women is held at the chief's house and is conducted by the wife of the chief to teach young ladies their duties as women. After a long admonition session, the chief's wife puts scarves on the young ladies' heads. Before they officially become women, they don't need to wear scarves, and leads them to the ceremonial ground at the kuba to join post-ceremony dancing and singing. After the arrival of the gods via the ceremonies of invitation, there are the ceremonies for sending away the gods. Here, the participants return to the ceremonial ground facing the kuba in a half circle and sing songs of farewell to send off Amo Hamo and the warrior gods back to heaven. Each of 2 young ladies carries a torch to the ceremonial ground and lays it in the fire pit to signify that we women have our role in carrying on the Tsou's legacy. The ladies then join the procession of sending the gods on their way. In addition to the ceremony for roads, conducted before the greater ceremony begins, as mentioned earlier, the participating kinship units carry a bunch of thatch and go to their own community square in the suburb near where they live. Wine toasts are made to the community gods in hopes they grant the people daily safe passage on the roads. They then return to the kuba ceremonial ground. The last ceremony is the ceremony for kinship's millet barn. Here, the chief leads the participants to the various millet barns in all the kinship family units and conducts wine toasts to thank the gods with much gratitude while beseeching them to continue to bless the people with bountiful harvests in the coming years. Customs. Praise the life. Birth. The Tsou are a patriarchal society. To hunt, farm, and fend off foreign invaders requires a sufficiently large tribal population. Therefore, the society encourages women to reproduce prolifically, and for that reason, pregnancies are of great importance. Custom has it that in order to give birth to strong and healthy infants, women must observe some taboos. When pregnant, for example, they should not catch and slaughter animals, or touch weapons and hunting gear that are used by men, and they should not attend ceremonies. In Tsou tribes, there are no professionally trained midwives. Elder women usually deliver the babies. Mothers normally teach their daughters how to deliver babies themselves, a precaution stemming from the fear that no one would be around to help when a woman gives birth. 1 week after a baby is born, the umbilical cord is severed and thrown to the top of the roof. Legend has it that the cord will become a gecko. Therefore, when geckos are spotted and heard making sounds on the walls of a house or ceiling, children, for fun, try to guess which gecko came from whose umbilical cord, based upon the lizard's size. While geckos in southern Taiwan can make a vocal sound, those in northern Taiwan cannot. On the infant's first birthday, the grandfather on the mother's side gives the grandson a bow and arrow set, encouraging him to become a warrior and super hunter. To the granddaughter, he would give a small spade, in hopes that she become a hard-working woman. When the child is 15 or 16 years of age, they will visit the maternal grandfather again and receive blessings on becoming an adult. Wedding ceremony. Tsou marital customs dictate that tribal members are monogamous. Traditionally, a marital relationship is not only a matter between a man and a woman, but also a major event between two families and the place where each grew up. When a young man becomes interested in a young lady, or when a couple of young people have been deeply in love, a matchmaker, they are mostly men, will bring wine to the young lady's family and offer a marriage proposal on the young man's behalf. The lady's family will then invite familial elders to attend the occasion for several reasons: to show respect to the elders and to strengthen their bargaining power. Sometimes, even though the lady's family is in fact in favor of the marriage proposal, they may pretend that they are surprised by it. They may even criticize or say negative things about the man and nitpick about things in general. But the marriage proposal team members might play dumb, pretending they don't understand what the lady's side is being so fussy about, while at the same time saying nice things and urging everyone to drink. This process keeps going for a long time. If the lady's side shows enthusiasm too early in the process, that could make people suspicious and wonder whether there is something wrong with the young lady. When the lady's family pretends that they are not wholeheartedly willing to accept the marriage proposal, but will nonetheless, the man's team will present the lady's family with a piece of black fabric as a gift and invite them to return with them to the young man's home. A date will then be chosen for the wedding festival, allowing time to invite friends and families. After the wedding, the man's team brings the young lady to his home, and the man and the lady sit on either side of the matchmaker. The matchmaker gives each some sticky rice cake, blesses them with goodwill, and admonishes them. Finally, he escorts them into the new bedroom. On occasion, it happens that a groom or a bride is too shy to enter the room with an opposite sex, especially under the eager eyes of the many who are watching, and runs away from the scene. When this happens, there are people to usher the couple back into the bedroom. Only then is the matchmaker's job considered accomplished. The next day, the new mother-in-law leads the daughter-in-law to the paddy rice field to work, albeit symbolically. On the third day, the bride's family members visit the groom's family, bringing millet wine and sticky rice cake as gifts, and invite the bride and the groom to return with them to their house. Similarly, the father-in-law will take the new son-in-law to the mountains to collect firewood, to show that he has accepted the son-in-law. In the Tsou's tradition, when a marriage proposal is presented, both sides agree upon certain marriage commitments. Unlike the tradition of the Han people, a dowry and betrothal money are not required. However, to show the proper gratitude for the bride's family having raised her, the groom will commit to providing assistance to the bride's family, called fifiho in the Tsou language. The commitment may last for 1 year, 2 years, or even as long as 3 to 5 years. During that time, the husband lives in the house of the wife's family. When there are major events in the husband's family, both husband and wife and their children must attend the events. When the committed time period is up, the parents of the husband, bearing gifts such as wine and rice cake, go to the daughter-in-law's family to welcome home their son, daughter-in-law, and their grandchildren. Funeral ceremony. Over time, the encroachment of the modern world upon Taiwan would put an end to many of its old customs, including those governing burials. Before the Tsou had accepted the modern ways of living, however, after a family member died, the deceased was dressed in traditional clothing while the body was still flexible. With the help of a wood frame, the corpse was fixed in an upright squatting position with both arms crossing the chest. A hole was dug in the house, and the body was buried in the hole in the same upright position. A fire pit was maintained above the hole or burial site to keep the ground dry. It would take some time initially for the damp earth to dry out. Family members slept by the fire pit to comfort the deceased. When buried, the body would face Hokubu, the sacred mountain for the dead, which is located southwest of today's Alisan tourist area, so that it would be easier for the spirit of the dead to go home in order to rest. Normally, family members continued to live in the house until so many holes had been dug there was no more room for the dead. The living would then search for a new site to build their new house. They'd leave the old house behind for trees and grass to take over. The Tsou's tradition had it that once a person passed away, the body should be buried as soon as possible, lest it emit foul odors. This would be regarded as disrespectful to the deceased and would likely elicit criticism by the tribal members. Therefore, before the area's transportation network became functional and convenient, people would rely on their feet to get from one location to another, and it was permissible to bury the dead before all of the relatives had arrived to attend the burial ceremony. Even so, the relatives, upon hearing the news, had to hurry if they wanted to arrive in time to console one another. In the past, within 5 days of the burial, the family members of the deceased were prohibited from consuming fish, meat, or alcohol, and were not permitted to speak loudly, work, or howl out loud to express their grief. The entire atmosphere was to remain very solemn. On the 5th day, the relatives would gather together again, along with a seer, to conduct the ceremony and sprinkle wine above the burial site and honor the dead with cooked sticky rice. Much was done before a burial ceremony to make things ready. For example, family members placed a section of crushed bamboo and thatch by the front door, and a bamboo cup of wine by the entrance in the back of the house. The seer fashioned a hideout using a haystack, from which he suddenly jumped, then picked up and struck the bamboo and thatch and yelled, "Go away, and do not return to bother the family members." He emptied the wine on the ground and circled the house with strings of thatch to indicate that the deceased would no longer be welcome to the house. In addition, he used bunches of thatch to sweep around the house and lightly brush the family members to chase the spirits away from them. When the seer had finished, the attending relative circled the fire pit and drank a little wine. On the 6th day, the female family members would clean up the house, inside and out, and wash the clothes. Male members fished in the brooks and broiled and consumed whatever they caught on site. They'd head home the next morning with thatch tied onto their clothes and then go out again hunting and sleep in the mountains. On the 8th day, life for everyone in the tribe would return to normal. In summary, today, As a result of frequent contact with people outside the Tsou tribe, along with the advancement of information technologies, many rather good customs have gradually been forgotten, the warrior festival being an exception. We, the Tsou people, should reflect on this serious state of affairs.